Hey folks, Quill18 here, and welcome to a post-mortem for Growth Industries, a game that I made in 48 hours for the Ludum Dare Game Jam competition. There's two versions of Ludum Dare that run simultaneously. There's the Jam and the Compo. I participate in the Compo, which is 48 hours. Everything must be made from scratch. You cannot use any pre-existing art or music, no matter, what kind of licensing that is provided for them at all. Even CC0 is not allowed, so you have to do everything from scratch. There's also a Jam version, which is 72 hours. You can use some pre-existing assets, and you can work as a team as well. The 48-hour compo is completely solo, but I do live stream the whole thing, and thousands of people turned out to watch me build this game in real time. I did sleep because I'm not suicidal, and also after 12, 16 hours of programming, you really do need to sleep, otherwise you're not going to get any work done. So, let me go and do a round of play with the game, and then we will talk about things that went into making it. The actual raw footage, I require 80s pop music to program. It's just the way that I work, and therefore, if you go to Twitch and you try to watch the VODs, you will run into most of them, or a majority of the video being muted just because of copyright issues. There's no real way around that because I'm not programming without my 80s pop music. So there's this post-mortem, and I do have the video. I might be able to make a time lapse if I find the time to do it. So there might be some more footage, but for now, let's start by playing the game. So first of all, I'm annoyed here because this is actually supposed to scale. There's a glitch in Unity when you are full screen that some of the UI elements, the UI canvases and stuff, don't work properly. Now, this is on 5.3.1, which means it's not horrifically broken. But in 5.3, it was horrifically broken to the point where I ended up shipping the game initially with full screen disabled. You can see here, it's really weird. Here is windowed. A maximized window, and this UI is scaling to the max. That is particularly weird. I'm trying to Alt-Enter over here, so clearly some things are not, yeah, there we go. And this is in full screen mode, and the UI is not scaled for some reason. So there's definitely some issues. I think if you go back to Unity 5.1, the UI scaling would work better and more properly, but I think 5.2 introduced a little bit of it, and 5.3 introduced even more. Some of it's based around the multi-monitor support, which is disabled in 5.3.1, but this sort of stuff caused no end of headaches because I couldn't figure out what the issue was, and it turns out the issue was just sort of Unity not doing things quite right. Yeah, it doesn't quite make any sense. Anywho, this Ludum Dare was quite unique. We can skip the tutorial, although it's got one, telling you what to do, so we can skip that. This Ludum Dare was quite unique in that it had two themes. So the way it works, people can submit theme ideas in the weeks leading up to Ludum Dare, and then there's a thing called a theme slaughter, where you just go to a page, you get shown a random theme, and you then just say, is this a good theme or a bad theme? And you just vote up, vote down, vote up, vote down. You're just trying to weed out all the really crap themes. And then there's a series of rounds of votings where you get shown 20, or maybe it's 25 themes, and then you thumbs up and thumbs down the themes there, and we've got 4 days of that, and then the top 20 or 25 or whatever it is from those 4 days get put into a list for the final day of voting. And again, you thumbs up and thumbs down all the various themes. And then in the end, the theme with the most positive votes gets chosen. This year, there was a tie. The tie was between Growth and Two Button Game, which was interesting, and it's the first time it's ever happened. And the organizer of Ludum Dare said you can pick either theme, or if you want to incorporate both, go for it. So I knew going into Ludum Dare, I was really, really hoping to make a strategy game based around cards and or sort of tiles that you would put down. I wanted something that was similar to a card game or a board game, for example. I've gotten a lot of requests to do that sort of thing in the past, and I've always hesitated because oh, this is going to be so hard and tricksy. And then at this time I was like, you know what, I'm just going to go for it. So with that kind of thing, I mean, unless I was really contrived and said that, oh yeah, it's just left mouse, right mouse or something, or in fact, in this game, it's actually just left mouse, scroll wheel. That's it. It's mostly a one-button game. So unless I went really contrived and tried to, fudge it, oh yeah, it's two, but it's not really using the two-button theme. Mostly we're using the growth theme, and in this case, you are a mega corporation. You're trying to grow your business, but actually, the only thing that matters in the end is how much you grow your stock price. That is, your final score is determined purely by the stock price, and really nothing else. Not your ethics, Not even necessarily your cash on hand, although as your cash over here grows beyond a certain point, then you will start to pay out dividends, which will boost your stock price. I mean, I know that's not really the way it works in real life, but it's fine. If the idea of the game sounds interesting to you, you should check out, there's a variety of board games and card games that use for inspiration. In particular, the hexes like this. There's a great game called Suburbia, which is this hex-based building game that's basically like a SimCity sort of hex-based tile game. The base mechanic here of the tile laying is pretty straightforward. You put them down, the tiles do something, and a lot of them have bonuses for adjacency. I mean, there's nothing fancy about that. The real magic of Suburbia comes from like this sort of real estate auction system, and this goal system for bonus points. It's great, and you should definitely check it out. Anyway, let's go ahead and play. Basically, every turn, you can lay down a tile. We've got a list of these two over here. You get a preview of the upcoming ones over on the right, very sort of Tetris-y style, and you get to choose one or the other. Two ended up being, like, actually a pretty nice balance of choice, and originally I think I just, like, literally just threw it out there because maybe we'd use a 2-button system, and in the end we didn't use that. But 2 ended up being really good, plus you can get a research lab later on that will actually boost it, so you have a choice of 3, and you see 3 upcoming cards, which gives you a lot more options. Lots of things went really well this Ludum Dare. In particular, and I always say this, first of all, I always say, I'm going to keep it simple this Ludum Dare. This is not necessarily a simple game. There's a lot going on. But what I actually try to mean by that is a Ludum Game Dare should do one thing exceptionally well. And oftentimes in the past, I fall into a trap where I'm doing at least 2 things in the game, or maybe even 3. For example, some of the games that I liked a lot that fell a little bit flat was like V for Victory, which was a sort of a combination, like shoot 'em up, you know, like you're just going with the spaceship and you're blasting out laser beams or missiles, and you can grab power-ups and change, you know, from a multi-shot to a bouncy shot or whatever, right? Like those sorts of like spaceship shoot 'em ups. But also some tower defense elements, which isn't necessarily a bad combo. And in fact, the pure tower defense plus shoot 'em up worked out really well. But you had a variety of other abilities you could also use. You could put down flame sort of traps and freezing traps, and you could nuke the board. And that ended up being too much, and I couldn't give those other features enough love to balance everything out in an interesting way. So they ended up being sometimes too powerful, and in the end got nerfed so much that it was you could basically ignore them. So he spent a bunch of time developing something that was basically ignored, and we had extra buttons there. This game here does one thing very well. You take a tile, you place a tile, you get some points. That's it. And then it becomes a question of, let's add more tile variety. Let's balance the tiles a little bit better. I should probably play a couple rounds so you guys can actually get a sense of what it is. So, let's go ahead and start off with, I'm going to put down an assembly plant. Assembly plant will cost us $3 million over here, or whatever. 3 M's, marmots maybe. And generate 1 income. And generate 0 growth. It won't change our stock price. By the way, there's a little card help over here that gives you sort of a legend breakdown of things. So that was really handy. These are all the things. Because we kept it a little simpler, I was able to put in lots of this sort of stuff. The board that you play on, the sort of like graph sheet or whatever, with little marks on here. We almost didn't need the tutorial pop up at the start because we get these little things. Cash lets you buy things, grow your stock price to win, audit date, game over. Hint, click card help, look down, for example. And then we are also able to put in a bunch of funny things all over the place. You can go and check that out yourself if you play the game. So, I'm going to click on the assembly plant. Highlights all the legal tiles where you can put it. Always has to be adjacent to something. I'm going to put it right over here. And there you go. Your other card gets discarded. The one you don't play gets thrown out. And then you get these 2. One thing I did is the first 4 cards that get presented to you are not random. They are guaranteed to be those 4 cards. They're all affordable. And they show off some of the interesting features. Like they show off right away some of the adjacency bonus stuff without being too complicated. There are 4 types of cards. You can see in the card help here. Manufacturing, which is the gear. Administration, which is the pencil. Marketing, which is the megaphone. And sales, which is the money bag. These are actually all just Unicode characters. That's it. Like, you could just type them on the keyboard, you know, using the alt codes or whatever on Windows. And in the font that I use, which is Sego UI or something like that, which most of the text is, there's the card title here is something like industrial something or other. I don't remember. It's on the Ludum Dare page, which will be linked down below if you want to find out what this font is. And everything else in the game is the Sego UI family. This is the script version of it. Right over here, and then everything else I think is the black version. Black is like super bold or something like that, and that's pretty much it. Oh, and there's also another one like the Sego UI symbol one, which has extended Unicode stuff. I don't even remember if we needed to use that at all. I'm not sure. Anywho, so let's put down a quality assurance next. It costs $8 million. It doesn't give us any money or any growth by itself, but it does give us 2 income per turn per adjacent manufacturing. Well, we have an assembly plant here, so if we put the quality assurance next to that one, we will get 2 extra money from that. So we're going to put that down, and we'll actually see the money go. Boop, boop, boop. So we get 1 income from the headquarters, 1 from the assembly plant, and QA gave us 2 income because it's adjacent over there, which is great. Next thing we can do is put down a sports arena. Sports arena is one of the later features that we added in. It's actually, like, it's a big tile in a sense, in that it's got a size of 2. When you put it down, it spawns another copy of itself. Now, the copy of the sports arena may have a different name, might even have a different type, but the income per turn and the growth is identical. So it's going to spawn another tile that's a -1 +2 tile over here. So it's going to cost us money, give us a lot of growth. I think we want money growth right. We want money. We want income right now. So I don't think we want to put this down. That's a little bit. People might not realize that the other tile will give you exactly the same bonus. And my good friend Demonac had recommended, actually, that this tile should actually show you the total. This should be a -2 +4 tile, if that's the balance. And the tile it spawns should just be a 0-0 tile. And I think that actually would have been better. But, it's there. Cosmetics company is over here. It costs $10 million. It gives you +1 income, +1 growth, which may not seem like that much compared to some other things. But the thing that starts to matter at a certain point are these keywords. So this is not just a manufacturing building. It also has the chemical keyword, and the QA has an office keyword. That'll come into play relatively soon. So I'm going to drop a cosmetics next to the QA. Now the QA is going to give us 4 income. Oh, but now I don't have enough money for either one of these 2 cards. I get the red border, get a little tooltip that says too expensive, and we got a pop-up down here that says, hey, you're broke. Indeed, I only have $7 million in the bank. This costs $10 million and $20 million over here. Mega Mall, again, is effectively a 6 income tile if you put this down, because it spawns 2 more copies. But again, it's a little unclear. So you have 2 options here. You can just skip a month, so you'll just accrue your income one more time. Or you can take a bailout. The bailout will give you $10 straight up. But will give you a permanent -2 growth every single turn. And it also advances the turn counter, so you also get your income. A lot of people say, oh, the bailout's never worth it. And it's a little hard to tell. Depends maybe on what time it is. If I built it now, effectively the -2 growth would result in a total of -42 stock price. Over the rest of the course of the game, except for the fact that you can actually go negative for the stock price, so it's not actually going to generate that much. Maybe overall it's going to cost us about 30 stock price over the course of the game. 30 stock price is really not that much, and I think with the extra $10 boost, we'd actually do relatively well. The biggest problem with taking the bailout, if I click here, it puts it somewhere random on the board. Too big to fail. As it happens, I actually am very happy with this placement because it didn't screw up my sort of area around the QA. I want to put more offices down there. Ooh, and there we go. So we got a chemical plant over here. So the chemical plant costs $12 million, gives you 1 income, no stock price growth, and you'll see the stock price next turn will go to a penny. That's as low as it's allowed to go. But it gives you +1 income per adjacent chemical. Cosmetics is a chemical tile, and actually the chemical plant itself is chemical, and actually the pharmaceuticals is going to come up. So that's going to be really good. And in particular, it's also a manufacturing, which means next to the QA. So I'm going to do that and do there. You'll notice there's no click and drag. And a lot of people do try that the first time they play. I would really like click and drag, but I actually made an intentional choice to not do click and drag with the tiles right at the start, because click and drag is a little bit fiddly, and I knew we'd spend like an hour or 2 or whatever trying to get the click and drag to go exactly right and look exactly right and, you know, be attached properly, and maybe also allow the click in case anyone has problems doing that. And Ludum Dare is very time sensitive. 48 hours, plus I sleep, plus I have dinners, plus I go for walks, you know, got to stretch and do all those sorts of things. And so it's really important to identify things where you might waste a lot of time getting just right because it's kind of fiddly, and maybe cut those things out. In fact, there were lots of things that we ran into that were a pain in the butt and cost us a lot of time. In particular, trying to get these little fonts like this inside of our text. Actually, this one here was fine. That's the generic currency symbol. That was totally okay. It's these other ones, these other symbols. Unity has really weird and inconsistent support for Unicode. And some, like, maybe it doesn't have like the super extended Unicode built into its text mesh system. Oh, the other thing you'll notice sometimes when you drag the cards out, they'll sort of clip through each other in sort of an awkward way. And again, that has to do with the fact that I'm using a text mesh object to render this text, and you can't really choose the render layer and the stacking the same way as you can with the other 2D sprite stuff. So this is all incorporated with 2D sprites, and the text mesh is a little bit weird. I could have done this probably with the UI system completely, literally just used the UI system to incorporate this, but I had a little bit less experience with it, and I knew that it might be tricksy to get all the scaling to work right. Actually, one of the other issues to talk about is how I use the scaling in this game, because what do I want to say here? So the canvas can do two things. You can, so here's the thing. Actually, a better way to show this would be if I popped out of full screen mode, right, and did this. So we are not in full screen mode, we're in a window. Now I'm going to change the window size and pay attention to the text up here. In particular, look at the cache in top left corner because it's not going to move. I'm going to make the window bigger and then let go. Notice that nothing changed over here. It's exactly the same size. That's because the default canvas mode is in pixel perfect mode. And that's quite nice, right? It ensures that, you know, we use the same amount of pixels no matter what screen people are on. That means if you've got things set big, the UI doesn't take much space. If things got set small, the UI uses a lot of screen real estate, but it doesn't shrink. Notice that the card text shrinks quite a bit. So if to read this here, you'd have to zoom in a bit. So it's a choice as to which way you want it. The other thing you can do, and actually the title screen is like this. The title screen is set to scale so that the percentage of the screen space that is used to display that title thing will scale up with the window. So except for that weird full screen bug, it will always look to be about the same size. And that's one of the decisions you have to make quite early on with your UI. So the downside to having it pixel perfect is for people who are like on big 4K display, this text is effectively very tiny because it uses a fixed amount of pixels. So there was some back and forth about how we might want to do it. I'm not going to say that my solution was perfect, but that was a thing. Anyway, I don't remember how I started talking about that. Oh yeah, but then the fonts in here, I don't know. There were all kinds of issues. There's a weird thing where you can incorporate arbitrary meshes. Because what I want to be able to do is basically, I didn't want to have to do the art of all these cards in Photoshop. Which you could have. I could have done all the art for the cards in Photoshop and then use them in the system. Then they'd actually look really nice because the fonts would be rendered a little bit better. I could scale things better. I could use, you know, more characters and more art and whatever. But it sounded like a pain in the butt where whenever I want to change what a card did, I would have to change the data in the game, but then also adjust the art, which had the text. This way, I have the text and the logic of the card in the same place in a code file, so I can just make the tweak in the same place and everything is awesome. But it was a little tricksy to get some of these font things in there. I'll show you in the editor some of the stuff we had to do to incorporate that. It was kind of a pain in the butt, and there's some more weird glitches. We spent like over an hour just trying to get these things to render properly in the paragraph of text because there was some stupid Unity stuff going on. In fact, literally every single piece of text you see here and in the title, this is just text as well. These characters, well, sort of, it's a mesh instead of a text thing. It's really weird. And in the end, it didn't have to be a text thing now that they realize it. Anyway, moving on. Each one of these also has an invisible character in here called Unity is stupid because it was the only way to make it work. Anyway, let's continue to build. So pharmaceuticals, we're going to put that next to the chemical plant because it's chemical, so you will get an extra +1 bonus here, and we'll put it next to the QA because it'll get a bonus from manufacturing. Let's talk about these little pop-ups that come up here. This is a good thing. We had a lot of time to put in that little extra bit of juice in here, as people call it. Those extra little like niceties that it's subtle, but makes it nice. We want to be able to give feedback as to how much income these cards are giving you. You can also look at the change up here. This is the change in income from the last turn, minus any construction costs. So it really is effectively just the income from producing all of these bits here. Same thing happens with the stock price over here. That +1 is just because of, yeah, how are we getting total +1? That's not right. Oh, I just realized the bug. So the government bailout triggers, but it's capped to go no lower than a penny, and then this triggers. It actually used to work properly, and then I changed some of the order of stuff. I just realized in my code. Anyway, no matter. But those little pop-ups didn't take that long to do. You know, a little bit of adjustment to get it right and time it right, but it makes a big difference. The other thing that makes a big difference, and it's subtle, just as you mouse over these guys down here, they just raise up a little bit. And I think that really adds a lot to the game. And it was so nice to be able to have time to do those things. That, the background over here, the little scrolling stock ticker here with subscriber names, that just adds a little bit of details. It was really nice. And especially since this game didn't have much in the way of sound to put in, and I can never spend a lot of time on music because I suck at it. There's a little mute thing. If you're playing the game, you don't like the music, you can turn it off. So there you go. Anyway, let's put down another assembly plant. This QA is going to make a huge bank, 10 per turn. Very nice. And another cosmetics company. So I could put it next to the QA over here, which would generate +2. But I think I'm tempted. I'll leave that spot open for some other manufacturing later on. And instead, I'll just put this next to the cosmetics plant. And specifically, I'm going to put it over here because there's some stuff later on that combos with cosmetics. So we'll see how it goes. Support call center gets bonus for adjacent offshore. We don't have any of that yet. Parking lot gets growth for adjacent offices, but no money. Still, some growth wouldn't be bad. Go ahead and put that there. Start countering this government bailout. Franchise is interesting. Franchise doesn't cost you money to build. It actually gives you $5. But it gives you a penalty for all adjacent sales. We actually don't have much in the way of sales. We've also got a sweatshop, which is both offshore and a production center. I'm going to skip the franchise. I'll put a sweatshop over here next to the QA. So that's even more income. We got a Dwarven Mug Factory. Gives you bonus income per adjacent sales. We don't have any yet. Of course, we don't have a whole lot going on with the support call center, but I guess what I can do is put it right here next to the sweatshop. So it'll get a bonus from the sweatshop, and then we can put some more offshore over here. There's another sweatshop. Ooh, I like the finance department. Costs $25 million to build, which is huge. But it converts 10% of your cash every turn into stock price growth. It doesn't actually take your cash away. It's not like the dividends. Dividends, so here we're making 24 income per turn, but 12 of that actually gets paid out as stock price. Okay, so we lose $12 a month to dividends, but it does increase your stock price. So just getting richer does give you a way to grow your stock price. The finance department is great, though, because it doesn't take any of your cash away, and it just generates more stock price. So this by itself will generate 7.2 stock price. So I definitely want that. It's also an office. So I'll put it next to the parking lot. There you go. You can see these decimals start to kick in here. Bribe Senator is fantastic. You get 4 more months. So we're down to our 12 months here. We're halfway through the game. Bribe Senator will give us 4 more months. Doesn't give us anything else, but it's really worthwhile. It's got the crime keyword, but it doesn't actually, there's nothing else that combos with crime. It's just there for sort of flavor. Hostile Takeover there was also really powerful. It gives you 1 income and 1 growth per turn by itself, but it also gives you an extra +1/+1 for each other hostile takeover in the game. And so if you get a lot of these, they all grow together, and it becomes really sick. But I think we've got to prioritize the Bribe Senator. And I'm just going to put it off here by this assembly plant, because this doesn't have a keyword, so it's not really going to combo with as many things. So we'll do that. So we went up to 16 months, and then, of course, we still, spent a month. So still really, really good. Patent Office gives you growth per adjacent manufacturing. Human Resources is considerably cheaper, although it does cost you money. It doesn't have any built-in growth. It gives you +1 growth for adjacent admin. We do have a lot of money. So I think it's probably okay to put it here, although our money is also good because it does generate extra growth. I like the e-commerce site. It gives you a bonus per adjacent internet, but we haven't gotten much internet this time, although we will get another e-commerce site on the next go, and they will buff each other, which is pretty good. Oh, no, the export hub. That's amazing. It does cost $20 million, but it gives you 3 income per adjacent manufacturing. So we want to put it next to a bunch of manufacturing. It'd be nice to not cut off the chemicals, but I think we're going to have to. Let me put it here, because if we get a manufacturing right there, it'll be quite good. So this is going to give us 7 income right now, which is pretty nice. Marketing firm, I think I'm going to build the e-commerce because it does give us more income, more growth. Marketing firm gives us a lot of growth, but if we can get some more internet rocking and rolling, it'll be quite nice. I will put it there. And there's some more internet. And then this is quite nice. The IT department gives you money for each office. Either they're skimming off the top or maybe they're reducing your cost. We have 2 offices already. The HQ counts as an office. Department store, that is a lot of money though. But this is also internet, so I think it'll combo nicely with the e-commerce. Let me put it there. And then we've got a viral video. Viral video is amazing. Although celebrity endorsement does give you 2 income each turn for each cosmetics. It doesn't even have to be adjacent. We do have 2, so this would be worth 4 income per turn. It only costs us 4 and gives us some growth, which is really nice. Viral video, though, is too cool to not show off. So it costs $10 million, doesn't give you anything per turn. It does count as internet, though, which will help out with the e-commerce. But every turn, it spawns another copy of a viral video. Now, only the latest viral video will spawn another copy. So you don't go like 1, 2, 4, 8. Like, it doesn't do that. It goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 total, viral video. Each one of them increases your stock by 5 when it spawns. So it's effectively, this thing effectively is worth 5 growth. The downside is it does like start to fill up your board and grow uncontrollably, but it's also really, really awesome. So we're going to drop this right here next to the e-commerce site. And we're going to hope that the viral video spreads here because it'll be more internet, right? Another bribe senator, another hostile takeover. It would be nice to get a bunch of these, but again, I'm not going to ignore the bribe senator. It's too good. And in fact, I'm going to put it right here to try to force the viral video to grow north. Excellent. Perfect. You see it grew. Give us another 5 growth instantly. And also that's another adjacency for the e-commerce site, which is wonderful. Tax shelter gives us more time before the audit. Export hub, though, gives you so much money. But just being able to last more turns is also worth a lot of money. It also counts as being offshore. So I'm going to put it right here next to the support call center to boost that a bit more. Social media presence is another internet thing. TV station, though, does give you a lot of income per adjacent media keyword. We don't actually have any media keyword yet. So I'll put a social media presence, I guess here, next to the e-commerce site. Parking lot gives you growth per adjacent office. Oh, well, let's bid another cosmetics company right here. It's going to be perfect. Ooh. Do we want the +1 growth from putting it next to the patent lawyer or +1 income from putting it next to the chemical plant? Again, I mean, we have infinite money to buy things at this point, but more income does mean, or more cash does mean greater dividends, which leads to other growth in another way. I think I'm going to put it down here. So the export hub is now generating lots of money for us. Human resources gives us growth per adjacent admin. It would actually give us +4 growth over here, which certainly isn't bad. On the other hand, the e-commerce site is actually going to be way good. It's going to be surrounded by internet here. The viral videos are encouraging people to go to our e-commerce site, giving us a bunch of extra money. Not growth, but that's okay. Another viral video. Oh, I can't resist. So now we have 2 growing. We got to be a little careful, depending on how it processes. If this one processes first and grows here, it'll actually cut off this viral video, and it will no longer grow. Another bribe senator. This is going to be a very high-scoring game. No, I think we're okay. I think this one grew here, and then this one only was able to grow here, and then it'll go. If it does get blocked in, it won't go. Nuclear reactor? We're definitely building that. And I think what we want to do is build it right here. It will, so the nuclear reactor spawns a tile called toxic waste each month. And the toxic waste gives you 1 income. I think, I can't remember if it gives you negative growth. No, I don't think it does by itself, but if it's adjacent to anything that's not manufacturing, it will give you -1 growth. So when it grows here, it'll give you -1 growth from being next to the patent lawyer. On the other hand, patent lawyer will cancel that out because of the growth bonus here. And most importantly is that this will still be adjacent to the export hub because it counts as manufacturing, which is going to be good. Another bribe senator. Guys, this is going to be a super high scoring game. So happy I'm actually capturing this on video. Another QA, and mine is basically a cheaper version of QA over here. Slightly cheaper, less of a bonus, but it is itself manufacturing, so they sort of combo off each other, which is nice. Let me go and put it, say, here. Research department would give us 3 cards, but I think I'm going to go with the celebrity endorsement instead. It doesn't have to be adjacent to cosmetics. We already have 2 cosmetics. It counts as media. I might want to go and set up a little bit of a media spot. Look at the viral video just grow like crazy here. Let's go and drop it over here, and then maybe we can build some media stuff. Another nuclear reactor. So you can see the toxic waste growing out here. +1 income by itself. Gets a penalty for adjacency. Oh, it does get the extra penalty for being next to the export hub. So we're losing some growth for that, but it is more money, so that's okay. I think I'm going to start building some hostile takeovers and hope I get some more. This is typeless, so I'll just sort of shove it over here. I don't think we've got any synergy with sales right now, so that's okay. Another tax shelter, another e-commerce site, which can make lots of money with the viral videos right there. But I think getting 2 more months will give us more money. It's also offshore, which means we can drop it, say, right in here, next to the support call center. Dwarven Mug Factory does combo with sales, so we might want to put it over here. Marketing firm, we need something else to combo with that. Yeah, let's put down the Dwarven Mug Factory. Could get, no, this is going to be fine. And a social media presence. We don't have another exposed e-commerce site, but what I could do is put it, say, over here, and that'll be a good spot for one if we draw one later on. And maybe another one. And there's an e-commerce site right in there. Give us good money. Boop, boop. Bribe another senator. Holy cow. This is the longest game I have ever played. It's going to be a short video, but not anymore. Another celebrity endorsement, which is worth a fair amount of money. An import center, which does give us money for more sales. But we really haven't gotten a big sales block. Look at the viral videos just grow out of control. So I'm going to get a celebrity endorsement. I'll put it next to the other one. Again, build maybe a little bit of a media block over here if we get a TV station. Another tax shelter. Finance department, though, we generate 30 growth per turn. But this gives me 2 more months of 125 growth. And more chance to grow more stuff. I think we got to go with the tax shelter. Put it here. Maybe we can get another thing that, what is it? Another support call center or something like that. There's another hostile takeover. So I'll go ahead and put it right down here. It buffs the dwarven factory, and whenever our income gets down here, there you go, +2, +2. Okay, radio station gets money for adjacent media. IT department's not bad. I don't think we have that many offices, though. So let me go and put down the radio station here. It'll do pretty well over here. And this is growth for offices actually might be better than the support call center. Drop that down over there. +1 money for adjacent media, +1 growth per adjacent. We don't want to put it next to the toxic waste, though. Slightly more cash or slightly more direct growth? I guess we'll put a patent lawyer right here. Another hostile takeover. Great. We're just going to surround the dwarven mug factory with that. They'll be worth +3, yeah, +3, +3 each right now, which ain't bad, and that'll continue to grow, right? More celebrity endorsements. Again, the human resources pretty strong for growth. But this combos nicely here to just generate a lot of money. I think it's okay. Might be a good time to drop down the research department. Still counts as chemical 2. And put it here with a plan to maybe get another chemical shop later on. And then we get more cards. Look at this. So you get a lot more options to mess around with stuff. Like maybe spawning a mega mall, which counts as sales. So let me drop it right here. Notice this was... It's something that happens very rarely, and really, it's probably not worth it. But it doesn't let you put it somewhere where the Mega Mall couldn't grow big enough. So I can't put it there, but I can put it here. So it generates a warehouse and a mall theater. Notice that all 3 tiles do give you the +2, +0, the same, but they have different types and different keywords over here. But you don't get control. Another viral video, another HR. No, we'll go for another viral video. Let me go and drop it right in here to buff the e-commerce site. And then it has the ability to grow out, which is fine. Chemical plant. I think the chemical plant is going to be the way to go. We're going to put it right down here. So all that toxic waste counts as a chemical. These are all chemicals. That's pretty good. Another hostile takeover. Lovely. Finish off the dwarven mug factory bonus over here. How many turns do I have left? 1 month! 1 month. This is going to be our last play. Then an executive office for direct growth, I think, is going to be the way to go. And I don't know if... Oh, we do. HR will get a bonus from the pencil. It counts as an office, which means it'll buff our IT a little bit more. And that is the end of this very long game, actually. Holy cow. And you can keep playing forever if you want. We got S. So the scores go F. You know, they're like grades, right? F, D, C, B, A+. S is if you get over 2,000. It's exceptionally hard to get. I guess it's super. And actually... I think if we hit 4,000, I would have got a double S grade. This is my first S, actually. And if you get over 9,000, what 9,000? You will get triple S, which is the highest possible score. You have to get incredibly lucky to get anything like that, but there you go. And we got the credits, including the people who supported the Whiskey and Chocolate Fund during the stream. So that was excellent, and thank you very much for that. Okay, so let's pop out of there, and let's open Unity over here and talk about a few things. By the way, all the code is available on the Ludum Dare page. It's not actually an open source game, but part of submitting for Ludum Dare, the 48-hour compo, you do have to upload your source code, so you can go through this and take a look around. And actually, you should be able to compile the Unity project on your own as well if you want. But the basis of it, we've got these hex cards over here. Oh, I don't have anything open, so it'll take a while. I mean, we're not going to go through all the code. That's not the idea. The idea is mostly talk about what went wrong and what went well, which I've already addressed a fair bit, basically, right? What went well is the fact that I had a really good goal. I love these types of board games, so I sort of had an intuitive understanding. I mean, it's not tricky. There's hex tiles, and there's adjacency bonuses, and there's types. Done. There you go. That's the basic, the entire basis of the game. And that makes it, wow, interesting. Why is this all weird like that? There we go. And that's the entire basis of the game, so there's nothing particularly tricksy about that. It's all in terms of implementation. Most of the code is actually in this card manager class. As we went along, it became more and more increasingly poorly named. It ended up being almost like the entire game class over here. It's got 1,100 lines of code in one file, which I do not like doing. It's also programmed very, very quickly, obviously, so there was a lot of things that were done like, okay, this is the first thing that comes to mind. I'm going to implement it this way. It's probably shit, but we're going to do it for it. Go for it. Anyway, some things have to be refactored later on. But honestly, it tends to take less time to just quickly slap together an implementation and then maybe refactor later on the couple of things that need to be refactored than to spend a bunch of time thinking what's the exact perfect implementation the first time. Rule number one of Ludum Dare, well, rule number one is probably keep it simple. Number two is just get shit done. And then, fix things later if you need to do it. You got to go fast. You can't, sit here and just, navel gaze about the right sort of philosophy of software development and design. You just got to get stuff done. So we did that. And I was able to do this while live streaming and talk about what I was doing the whole time, too. So, different ways to try to find our legal neighbors, get some hexes. One thing that's important, if you do try to make it a hex-based game, I've actually got a few people that have already emailed about some issues. They're like, how do you... No, don't save. How do you get the mouse to know which hex you are clicking on? And that is tricky. If you are, like I do in many games, right? In many games I have sort of like a mouse manager, and the mouse manager checks to see if the mouse was clicked, and then if it was clicked, the mouse manager is responsible for figuring out what was clicked on. And you can use math to do that. It's really easy if you're using a square tile system, but in a hex tile system, it's a lot trickier because you're having to involve like various things with angles and whatever to know which hex you're clicking on because, there's diagonal lines all over the place. But really what you're going to want to do there is do a ray cast. Do a ray cast and find out which object the ray hit. Do a ray cast from the mouse straight down, well, in 2D, sort of just, yeah, down is really the only thing. Do a ray cast straight into the screen, find out what object you hit, and then you use that to, do some sort of logic. In this case, instead, what I did is on my two things that are clickable, which are objects with the place hex button. Those are things that are down here in our little toolbar, and then hex legal, which is the green hexes that get highlighted when you try to, when you click on something down here, highlights a bunch of green hexes. Both of them, very simply, just respond with on mouse up. That's it. They have a collider on them, a polygon collider, which if you have a polygon collider, then your functions can have on mouse up, on mouse down sort of functions, which will automatically execute when the mouse is clicked or released on the object. Additionally, the hex legal here does have an update where it's personally checking to see if the mouse button is down. It's trying to detect if there's dragging, because when you are play, come on. There we go. Wow, that was slow. If you have this, and so if I click on here, we'll be placing the tile. But if I click and hold and drag around and then release, it won't place the tile. So that's all that's trying to do. It's trying to detect if we're dragging, and if we're dragging, don't do the mouse up behavior. That's all there is to it. And so that was one way to avoid that issue. It's a little trickier to place your tiles. If we do look at card manager, and what was a word that I used somewhere? Was it offset? Yeah, the hex offset to try to position things. I basically just eyeballed this in the editor and figured out, how when you place things next to each other, what's the offset that way. And then even in odd rows are slightly different, right? Because they sort of zigzag back and forth. So there's a little bit of trickier stuff with the hexes. But ultimately, a hex implementation is the same thing as a square tile. Tiles just have an X and Y coordinate. It just so happens that visually on the screen, every other row is just offset by sort of like half an X width and then back and forth. And then the other tricksy part is that tiles have 6 neighbors, and the X offset of their neighbors changes depending on what line. Because on one row, the neighbor sort of up and to the left of where you are is on the same X column as you, but on the next row, the tile up and to the left of where you are is actually X minus 1. So you got to put in some little bits like that. There's, what do I call it? Like get neighbor or something? Get neighbor over here so you can see it. So this is whether the X is offset. It depends on whether we're in even or odd row, and that's all there is to it. So we get the tiles based on that with this offset. And so little tricksy bits, but not particularly hard. The cards were implemented. I have a dictionary here with all the prototypes. Basically, I make one copy of every card to start off with in this create card function. This is where I create all the cards, right over here. So this is the mine. I give it the type. I tell it that it's got no keyword, which is what this one is. I could find another example. There, toxic waste, right? It's got a type. It's got a keyword, which is chemical. This one costs you nothing. It's actually not going to be in the deck. You can't draw toxic waste. It just spawns. It gives you 1 income. It gives you no growth. This is the description over here. So in red color, it says -1 growth in red per adjacent. And then these are shortcuts to generate the special code necessary to insert one of those symbols in the text. You can look at the code, and it's probably overcomplicated. It has to do with the fact that again, the Unicode support in Unity was really inconsistent. Like this Unicode system symbol is perfectly fine, but the other symbols that I use is not for some reason. So anyway, whatever. And then it's got a lambda over here, which is actually the code that gets executed every turn. When we process a turn, for each tile, this little code block gets run. And here, for toxic waste, it's very simple. For every adjacent marketing, -1 growth. For every adjacent sales, -1 growth. For every adjacent administration, -1 growth. Here at this import center, for every adjacent sales, it gets +1 income. Some are slightly different. This is for adjacent keyword. This is their chemical plant. If an adjacent card has the chemical keyword, we get a growth. And some are even more complicated than that. Like the viral video, for example. On the first turn, it will give you 5 income. And then it sets up a replacement card ability where it spawns a new copy of viral video. And then it goes ahead and sets its ability to blank, so it doesn't execute more than once. So you've got all these little functions. So we got these functions, and some of them could be called directly, but most of them needed to be couched in the lambda to give it some keywords, some information. So again, for each other thing with the keyword, so for every card that's not this card that has the keyword office, give us +1 income. This one was a special one. The research department changed the number of playable cards and then removed itself from the deck. So once you've played a research department, you shouldn't draw another research department over here. So all these little things like that. And it was pretty easy to make these changes with these little lambdas. So we create one copy of these in the prototype dictionary. The key of the dictionary is just the name of the card. And then this also adds a copy of this card to the deck list. But then what we do is for some of them, we remove them from the deck. The deck is the cards that you can draw from. So we don't want you to be able to draw the government bailout. But that's it. But it still has to be in the prototype thing so that we can spawn it and call it and reference it. And then when we actually place a card, where's that function? So place queue card, this is the function that gets called when you're placing a card from the toolbar, right? This is the queue, I call it. You click on one of these and then you click on the legal tile. That is placing a tile from the queue. When you click on the tile, it actually sets a variable. There's a selected queue card gets set. When you click on the thing in the toolbar, it sets this, and then when you click on the green tile to place it, it calls this with the position. So make sure we're not game overed. It removes the selected card from the queue, so it's no longer in the toolbar at the bottom. Then it calls another function called place spawn card. So when a card gets added from the queue, it gets spawned. It gets copied from our prototype database. And then here, we've already got a copy of the card. It's the one that's in the queue. We are placing it. So what this function will do, it's right down here, it properly sets its coordinates. It gets rid of the extra outline. So cards in the queue will have a green outline if you can afford them, or a red outline if you can't. So this just goes and destroys that outline that's on the card. It makes sure to update the neighbors for this hex card. It tells this card, when we place it, it tells it what its neighbors are, and then it tells all its neighbors that, hey, you've got a new neighbor, which is the new card we just put down. And then we recalculate all our legal hexes. The legal hex calculation is very simple. We tell it the object, the place where we just stuck a tile. So clearly, that place there should no longer be a legal hex. And then every tile adjacent to this one. So this is where we destroy it, right? We find the legal hexes dictionary is just basically the x coordinate underscore y coordinate is the key. So we just find the entry that represents the tile we just placed down, and we remove it from the list of legal hexes. And then we just check all the neighbors of the hex that we just put down. If it doesn't already have a card in it, then it becomes a legal hex. So sort of a bit of a mashup here. We certainly could have refined this a little bit more, but it works okay. And that, in the end, that's all that matters for Ludum Dare. Then, later on, if you want to make a commercial release, you can do it. In fact, I had a lot of people request a mobile version of this, which I hadn't really done before. So I've actually gone for Unity. I went and generated an APK file, or for Android is what I meant to say, and put it online. You can grab it actually technically from the Ludum Dare site. It's not advertised, but if you go down here to all the download links, all the download links actually lead you to the exact same area, which is this over here. You can see there's an APK file over here. That will run on Android. I didn't do anything special, so the UI gets it's really, really tiny. If you're playing on a phone especially, you may not be able to read it. And in particular, you're probably gonna have to, zoom into some of the cards over here to see the game. So it's not, it's not a really good mobile build, but it technically does work. And we might come up with maybe I'll make a proper build and put it on the Android store, since there's not that much work to do other than fiddling around with the user interface and making that better. If you do play the game on the Ludum Dare website here, if you play the embedded version, so that's the actual resolution of it, and you can play it embedded here. It's relatively small, and some of the font might be hard to read on these cards down here. I probably recommend you grab your Windows or OS X version and play it there. If you've got a Linux version, then you do have to just play the WebGL version, either embedded here or on the other page. Yeah, I think that's the end of the video. I think, we've covered some stuff. I'm very happy with the game. I don't know how well I've did. There's 3 weeks to vote. 3 weeks for people to vote on entries. So until then, I don't know. Does it say when the judging ends? There. 2 weeks, 3 days from when I'm making this video right now. We will know how we did. I think I'll have done pretty well. I really do think that's true. I don't literally know if it'll be my highest rated game. Of course, there's always a certain amount of randomness, right? How do people feel about blah and how they'll vote it. Right now, my top rated game is, where is it? Where's Drill 18? Right here. Oh, is the game running in the background? I can hear the music. Top rated game is Drill 18. Over here. It came in 6th overall, which was huge. But I think, sometimes you just hit a sweet spot of whatever. It was kind of adorable. It actually had somewhat better music as well. And maybe the competition was slightly different that time. This time, who knows? I think there's going to be more entries. How many entries are there? 2,873 entries. Slightly more than when Drill 18 was put out. And there might just be better stuff out there. I don't know. But I'm very happy with it. And I think I may agree with some people that I think this might be my just best game overall in terms of it's clean, it's got a lot of extra UI niceties, some extra little details here and there. It seems to be very fun to play, especially if you sort of understand how the game is played. A lot of people have been replaying a lot to try to get higher scores. They've been tweeting me with their scores a lot, which is a good sign. People replayed Drill 18 a lot too, which had a really sort of addictive quality to it. I definitely think this game could continue to be improved. Better card balance, more cards, and in particular, one of the things, and this is something that I would have liked to have done, but again, I was just trying to do one thing very well. Some sort of quasi-deck building mechanic. And I don't necessarily mean a sort of Hearthstone, Magic the Gathering type thing where you're building a card deck ahead of time. Rather, I think it would be interesting if actions you took in-game would load more cards into your deck. In particular, maybe your deck should start off with only relatively simple and cheap low-end cards, right? Only cards that cost less than 10 to start off with, which is going to be a good way to build up. But maybe there's something you can do. Maybe there's already tiles on the board, resources, cities, something like that. And if you can reach them, they'll unlock a certain number of tiles and add them to your deck. Or maybe every time you hit a certain stock price milestone, you get a choice of cards that you can add to your deck, and now they'll continue to come up randomly from then on. So you can sort of build your strategy as you go. You can say, I'm really going to focus on this sort of chemical plant synergy with other chemical tiles and just build up around there. I'll go more administrative. And I don't know exactly how that mechanic would take place. Plus, that would have been a lot of extra stuff to develop and try to balance. Not only you're trying to balance the cards with each other, now you're trying to balance this deck building mechanic. And I'm happy I left it out for Ludum Dare, but that might be a way to go in the future if I were to continue developing the game. Obviously, I'm super duper busy, so I don't know if that's a possibility, but yeah, I'm really happy with this. Thank you very much for watching, folks, and I'll see you next time. Thank you very much to all the November supporters over at patreon.com/quill18creates, and to these mic check level supporters. We've got Alex, we've got Wes Oldenbiving, we've got Andrew, we've got Craig Mortel, Philip Nichols, Neil Blakely Milner, we've got Speedy Savant, we've got Valiant Cake Fiend, Radel Del Peso, Aaron Toivson, maybe? Marius Fieldvold, Tim, Julian Auger Lafont, Stephen Stager, or Stagger, we've got Michael McClintock, and Bunny, and also everyone who's just watched, shared, favorited, subscribed these videos. You really make a massive difference when it comes to keeping the series going and making everything just interesting and awesome. And just thanks for watching and thanks for supporting. See you next time, folks.